for May underway. All right, everybody, my name is Brent King. I'm be the moderator here for the monthly Eurista Texas Speaker Series. This is the May 2022 Speaker Series, and we are very happy to have James Cochran with us. He's coming out of London today, and James sits in the partnerships team at the what3words, and looks after GIS, infrastructure, and utility partners in the North America and the United Kingdom areas. And so basically, in short, what3words is a simple way to communicate any precise location. They divided the world into 10-foot by 10-foot squares and assign each one a unique identifier made of 3 words. So and then what3word equals the address. So I'm going to go ahead and thank James for being with us today and turn it over to him so he can get through the presentations and give you all enough time to have some good Q&A sessions. So at any rate, James, thanks for being here, and take it away.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Brian. And first of all, thanks for having me on to talk to you all today. Yeah, pleasure to be online. As you can probably tell, and as Brian mentioned, I'm dialing in, I think, from probably slightly further afield than most. I'm over in London in the UK, but I, as Brian mentioned, head up our partnerships with GIS partners in North America and the UK, which covers a whole spectrum of different customers, from infrastructure, construction, utilities, municipalities, government level. So quite a broad range, and I'm excited to give you a bit of an introduction to what3words. I suppose just to start with, wanted to give a little bit of context as to us as a business. So we are a British company based in London, but we operate very globally. And put very simply, what we are trying to achieve at what3words is we're trying to build a new standard for how people talk about location. And that comes in all different sectors, all different guises, and looking forward to running through some of those key industries that we work in, but also specifically the use cases for GIS users and how what3words can be used there. So just to touch on a quick agenda, very keen to have plenty of time for questions at the end. Hopefully there will be a few. There usually are a good number when we present to people for the first time. I'm not sure what the level of understanding is for attendees. There might be some of you that know what3words and have been following us since we were founded back in 2013. For some of you, or many of you, might have never heard of us at all. So really wanted to start by talking a little bit about the problem that we're trying to solve at what3words, and ultimately why the company was founded in the first place. So the challenges that we have today with location data. Obviously then talking a little bit about the solution. So a quick overview of what3words, the concept, then diving into our ecosystem of partners and consumers around the world, the awareness that we have in the US, in Texas specifically, but also all over the world in all the markets that we operate in. And then digging into a little bit more detail for the benefits specifically of what3words for GIS users, the features on how what3words can be used within GIS, and then some specific case studies from Texas, from across the US and further afield as well. And then, yeah, would love, as I said, to open it up for questions at the end. So to start from the beginning, really wanted to talk about the challenge with location, and I won't dwell on this for too long, because I'm sure most people on the call today will be more than familiar with these challenges. But just to give a quick overview, the most obvious point here is that fundamentally there are lots of places around a huge place like Texas, a huge country like the US and all over the world that don't have an address. There simply is not a fixed street address. So if you're trying to communicate a specific location, say on a long stretch of highway in a remote part of the country, on a large property where there might be one postcode, one street address, or a nearest town, which might be many miles away, but it doesn't really help you get to exactly the right place. So that's obviously a big problem that people face every day in lots of different industries. But even when we do have an address, obviously there are lots of challenges that we come up against pretty much on a daily basis. To be totally honest, these problems are kind of nuanced from market by market, but even a very well addressed country like the US or the UK comes up with these kinds of issues on a daily basis. So first example being that addresses aren't always unique. There can very often be two streets with the same name within pretty close proximity to each other. So if you don't know where you're going, if you're not familiar with the local area very well, particularly when roads are given numbers for names, it can be very difficult to decipher, difficult to know which one you're supposed to be going to, and ultimately can lead to problems with people going to the wrong place. So you can see some examples I put on the screen here of 240 East 32nd Street in New York, for example. In London, in the UK, Church Road is the most common example. We have 14 church roads in central London alone and thousands around the country. So if I was to tell you to meet me on Church Road in London, that's actually not particularly helpful information. The second problem that we run into, again, probably pretty familiar to a lot of people on the call, is large sites, large buildings, stadiums, shopping malls, campuses like colleges, universities, hospitals, office buildings, apartment buildings, which will have one fixed street address, but multiple entrances, multiple car parks, multiple delivery points, and actually trying to be specific about which entrance you're trying to get to tell the emergency services where to go, to tell the delivery driver where to drop the parcel that he's trying to deliver, can actually be a really big problem in these places. Another classic example, again, a place like Texas, you'll be more than familiar with this, is rural properties, where you might be able to type in an address like College Farm, this is in the UK, into Google Maps, and Google will very helpfully drop a pin somewhere where it thinks College Farm is. But actually, if you know the area well, you'll know that College Farm in this example is actually 500 meters down the road, and that can be a bit of a problem if you're trying to go and find someone, find a friend for dinner. But if you're delivering, if you're trying to find someone in an emergency, that can be the matter of wasting valuable minutes in your day, or the difference between life and death, really, when it comes to emergency response. And the final example I wanted to touch on briefly before moving on is obviously new builds, new developments. They need to be given an address, and that address needs to be registered in all of the databases that we rely on every day for GIS systems, for navigation systems every day to find people, to find our way around driving. So this is a constant battle for databases to be constantly updated. And it can be a real pain point, especially when you're moving into a new property and you're trying to get all those deliveries to your door for the first time. Now, that's a problem. Obviously, there are lots of solutions available today. We've come a long way since street addresses were first created hundreds of years ago, and we live in a digital world now. So a lot of these problems can be dealt with using things like sharing a digital PIN. So, I can share my live location on WhatsApp. I can drop a pin in Google Maps and share that from one device to another device. The problem with a pin is that it's not always possible to use that as a solution. It's not very flexible. So if I need to remember where that pin is or communicate it outside of that digital environment, write it down, add it to a checkout page to be more specific about a location, for example, or where an asset might be located, it's not a very flexible solution, and it's very difficult to actually verbalize and communicate the exact location of that digital pin. And today, obviously, one way of doing that in a precise way is, using a system which has been around for a very long time now, GPS coordinates, latitude, longitude, British National Grid in the UK. We have all different forms of grid reference or coordinate system. And these systems work really well because they're basically really precise, and they're also universal. So it doesn't matter whether you're in the middle of London or in the middle of Siberia, you can always tell someone exactly where you are using a coordinate because it works anywhere. The problem, obviously, with the coordinate is that it's not a very human-friendly system. So there are lots of sectors, lots of people, lots of workers and industries that do use coordinates day to day, but it's quite an awkward process because it's pretty much impossible for human beings to remember and communicate 16 numbers without making a mistake. And that's really why people don't use coordinates on a day-to-day basis. You know, I don't ask friends to come and meet me for a coffee at 51.520847. You know, it's very difficult to remember that and to communicate that effectively. So that's really where what3words comes in, and just want to give you a quick overview. I don't know if anyone's familiar with our technology or not, but really to start from the beginning, essentially, as Brian mentioned briefly at the beginning to introduce me and the company, what we've done at what3words to solve this problem is divide the entire surface of the world into a grid of 10-foot by 10-foot squares, and give every single square in the world a unique address made of 3 random dictionary words. So the idea is that rather than having to use a string of 16 numbers to refer to a precise location, or, you know, a vague or inaccurate street address, which won't always get you to the right place, we wanted to take the best of both of those systems and make a system which is super precise, but much easier to remember and much easier to communicate on a daily basis. So what that means is the whole world has been given a what3words address. So that's the first thing to point out. If you download our app or go to our website to have a play around, I'd encourage you to do so. You can zoom in to anywhere in the world, click on that square, and just like you would discover the GPS coordinates for that location, you can discover the 3-word address for that location. So the example on the screen here is if I wanted to tell you how to find me in this amazing spot in British Columbia. I was over there meeting partners a few weeks ago in BC. All I'd need to tell you is meet me at Fillings Illusionist Leaked. And those are the only 3 words you'd need to find that exact 10-foot square. Similarly, if you wanted to find this spot, if you're out camping, hiking, trying to find cool views, to tell friends how to find them, loyal, invest, pleased is a 3-word address for this 10-foot square. And again, just to get back to some of those examples from earlier, what that means is in a situation where you're trying to tell someone an exact entrance to a large stadium, for example, a visitor entrance, a car park entrance, a VIP entrance, or an emergency access road, you can actually communicate those specific entrances really, really easily using 3 English words. So also, if you're thinking about more remote places, when you break down, for example, and I'll come on to some of the verticals that we work in, roadside recovery is a really obvious use case for our technology, because more often than not, your car breaks down somewhere that's pretty difficult to describe. So having the ability to share your location using what3words can really help improve response times. And obviously, in the context of GIS and a lot of the types of businesses and organizations that are using GIS systems, knowing where fixed assets, distributed assets, sites, entrances to construction sites which might not yet have a street address, all of these locations, which traditionally you might need to use a lat long or GPS coordinate of some kind to be specific about that location, you can now use what3words to really easily communicate it on a day-to-day basis. So that's the overarching concept. Just to go into a little bit more detail on the technology itself and how you can use it. As I mentioned before, we have a free app called what3words. So any business, any agency, any individual can download the app and use it totally free. You can use that to discover the 3 words for your front door, for your favorite view, for your favorite hiking or picnic spot, wherever that might be. You can search for a 3-word address as well. So if someone gives you the 3 words, books, really, roofs, for example, you can type that in, search for it, pin that location. You can then navigate to that location using any of the navigation apps you have downloaded on your device. So Google, Apple, Waze, Uber, whatever that might be. You can also share locations and save them into lists. So maybe key sites, you know, locations that you visit very frequently, you can save those locations. And also a really important thing to point out about the technology is that the what3words app and our core tech has the ability to work totally offline. So if you have the app downloaded, you don't need any data connection at all to discover the 3 words for your location. It takes the GPS of your device and converts it into 3 words. So you only need GPS signal in order to know where you are using what3words. Another thing just to point out on the technology side is, and usually this is one of the first questions that comes up, is are the words random? And what happens if I mishear a word, misspell a word, mistype a word, which is very easy to do, obviously. So what we've tried to do to make the system as intuitive as possible is intentionally shuffle similar sounding words as far apart in the world as possible. So if you do make a small mistake, it's very easy to spot that straight away, because one of those 3-word addresses might be, for example, Bayswater, London, filled count soap is in Bayswater, London. You can see filled count also is in Maryland, and filled count stop is in Oklahoma. And we have auto suggest, auto correct technology built into the system, which recommends results based on your current location. You know, you probably meant filled count soap, so you can error correct as you go, and guarantee that you're always going to get the right location. And lastly, on the tech side, I wanted to mention our languages. So as I said before, we're a UK-based company, so we started with English. What that means is the whole world has been mapped in English. So I can be in Austin, London, or Moscow and communicate using 3 English words. What we've now done is roll that out to 50 other languages so far, and we're constantly adding more, because we want ultimately everyone to be able to use the system of what3words, no matter what language they speak and no matter where they are. And fundamentally, all our technology is actually doing in the background, in the back end, is we are taking a system which works really well. We're taking a GPS coordinate and converting it into a 3-word address and vice versa. So that allows it to be built into any software, any system that's being used very easily. Every 3-word address is exactly as precise as a 16-digit lat long, but obviously has that added benefit of being able to be shared and communicated slightly more easily. So that's the technology. Just wanted to touch on us as a business, and as I said before, the ecosystem and some of the sort of awareness that we have around the world as well, because I think it's useful to give the context. So as I'm sure you can imagine, by nature of the concept of what3words, we work across a whole spectrum of different sectors. So everything from GIS, working with emergency services, municipalities, utilities, construction companies, building into their operations to improve response times, improve efficiencies. We also do a lot of work in logistics and deliveries. So working with carriers, local courier services, e-commerce partners, to improve the customer experience and also cut down last mile inefficiencies by allowing customers to be a little bit more specific about where they want their delivery to be delivered to. Alongside that, we do a lot of work in the mobility space, so working with ride-hailing apps, local taxi companies, consumer navigation apps, automotive companies, so we're built into car sat-navs around the world as well. And on the consumer side too, we do a lot of work in the travel and tourism and event space. So as you can imagine, large festivals and events where you might have one address for the huge site of tens of thousands of people going to a music festival or a sports event, you can be a lot more specific about key entrances and key points of interest on site by using what3words in brochures and booking confirmation emails, contact pages, anywhere that you would be listing location information. And more broadly, as I said before, we have an app. It's downloaded millions of times around the world. So I think last year the app was actually downloaded once every 2 seconds globally. So we've seen pretty huge growth in the last couple of years, in particular, despite obviously COVID and lockdowns and everything that's been going on. And that's available in 51 languages, as I said before. Excuse me. In the automotive sector, as I said, we do a lot of work here. So we now work with automotive brands all over the world who have built our technology directly into millions of cars. So you can get into a new Mercedes, for example, and either speak or type a what3words address into the head unit, and it will recognize that for navigation. But then, as a result of the work we do there, we're also built into lots of the software suppliers in that space. So the mapping companies like here, TomTom, Mapbox, Bosch, you know, the voice suppliers as well, people like Alexa as well, to make that experience even more seamless so that you can enter a what3words address using voice. And as I said before, our API and our other core technology, our SDKs, can be built into consumer navigation apps online and offline so that you can find your way around and navigate when you're out and about in more remote places. And another important thing, just to give the context as to our work in the GIS space, is that we work very comprehensively with emergency services around the world. So we started this work about 3 years ago, so fairly recently in the UK. And since then, we're now working with every single emergency control room in the country who are using what3words to help them locate callers on a 911 call, to cut down response times, and to help share locations in multi-agency response, emergency planning, all those types of situations. And as you can see from the flags on the screen, we've now grown that work internationally to lots of different markets. So the US is obviously a core market for the business, but also Canada, Germany, South Korea, India, Australia, South Africa, and many more. To be honest, everywhere from London to Mongolia, we've got emergency services using what3words, and actually even in Ukraine at the moment. So as you can see, lots of amazing stories of people being rescued by using the what3words app in an emergency. And I'll come on to some of that work in a bit more detail in a minute. More broadly, in the sort of safety, while we're on the subject of safety, we also see over the last few years more and more businesses, parks all over the world starting to use what3words in physical assets as well. So physical signage, trailhead markers, emergency sign information in parks, utilities at their key sites entrances, so that if there is an emergency or someone is just having trouble wayfinding in a slightly more remote area, they can use what3words for sharing locations and for wayfinding in those places. And as I said before, lots of events all over the world. So we work with Glastonbury in the UK and most of the big festivals now, London Marathon, lots of the big marathons around the world, to make that, you know, on the day experience a little bit more seamless, so you don't get lost trying to find, you know, water points, toilets, any kind of entrance, tents, etc. Now, to dig into the GIS side of things in a bit more detail, just wanted to talk through some of the key benefits. To be totally honest here, this is something that we're constantly learning about in terms of every organization that we speak to. We're learning a new potential use case, a new benefit for their operations. We're not the experts in GIS or in day-to-day operations for a utility, for example. But generally speaking, some of the key benefits that seem to resonate with a lot of our partners who integrate our tech into their GIS systems, you know, see value in terms of the simplicity of the integration. So I'll come on to some of the plugins and some of the softwares that you can easily integrate our API into. Obviously having valid and precise locations rather than slightly invalid data occasionally for asset information. For example, what3words helps in surveys, etc., to validate locations and improve data quality. In terms of communication, this is something that we see very broadly with emergency service partners and infrastructure companies around the world, is the ability to communicate location more easily on a day-to-day basis. So whether that's internally from one engineer to another engineer, over the radio, over the phone, writing it down in notes, but also multi-agency operations, joint ventures for large works that are going on. what3words is becoming a common language for these organizations to communicate location where other systems might not be fit for purpose. And then obviously the global aspect of our technology allows people to use it in their own language all around the world. In terms of the platforms that I mentioned, so important to point out here that we have a public API which can be integrated into any system, essentially, and I'll explain what those functions of the API are in a second. But we do have some off-the-shelf plugins that make the integration even easier to do. So you can see a few of those on the screen from the logos. We have a locator for ArcGIS for the whole suite of ArcGIS products in Esri. We work with Hexagon, CADCorp, MapInfo, Salesforce, GE Small World, and all of their suites. So we have a lot of plugins that make the integration really easy and can be done literally in a matter of 30 minutes in a lot of cases. Now to talk about some of those features that I was mentioning. So there are a couple of core functions of our API and what our technology allows you to do within a GIS software. So first of all, the core function is to convert from a GPS coordinate to what3words and vice versa. So if you have a whole database of asset locations or of site locations with GPS coordinates, you can batch convert those and display the what3words addresses within your GIS for all of those locations. You can also search for what3words address. So if someone provides you with a 3-word address for an incident, for an asset location, you can then type that directly into, for example, ArcGIS Online, pin that location on the map. It will convert 2 coordinates to pin that location, and then relate that to, say, the nearest piece of critical infrastructure that you're trying to communicate the location of. Secondary to that, as I said, you can do batch conversions. So if you already have long lists of assets of GPS coordinates in your system, or what3words addresses, vice versa, you can batch convert those between one another by adding a what3words address to every feature on a layer. And lastly, you can also include our auto suggest functionality, which I mentioned before. So that's the ability to error correct as you enter a 3-word address. So if you were to type 3 words into ArcGIS Online, for example, you would have that drop down of suggested results based on what you've typed and your current location to recommend the correct 3-word address so that you can make sure you're getting a valid location every time. So that's the key features. Now, just to touch on use cases and some case studies in a bit more detail. As I said before, there's a whole range of different ways that businesses use what3words on a day-to-day basis, but broadly speaking, they can fall into some of these core buckets or categories operationally. So what we're talking about here is improving emergency response times, helping ensure workers are safe by being able to share where they are easily in an incident or in an emergency. Alongside that, incident reporting, so less emergency type of incidents, but things like reporting the location of damaged assets, whether that's internally or from customers to you. You can improve the call times, improve response times to isolate incidents and respond to damaged infrastructure. Emergency planning as well, so especially in things, emergency situations, whether that be something like a hurricane or COVID times for, over the last couple of years, we've seen some amazing ways that what3words has been used in the planning procedures to help share critical locations more easily. Asset management and day-to-day field service. So as I said before, tagging all pieces of critical infrastructure with the what3words address makes that a lot easier to share on a daily basis and can improve, field service efficiencies. And then lastly, site deliveries. So any supply chain partners that you're working with, being able to be more specific about where you want deliveries to come to specific sites, cuts down their delivery times and improves the experience for their drivers and for your teams who are making the collections. Now, I just wanted to show a few of these case studies in action. I wanted to start by playing a very quick kind of minute-long video, I think it is. This is actually quite an exciting moment for us as a business. This was back in 2019, and this was the very first live emergency service call where what3words was used to locate the caller. So this was our first partner in the UK, as you can see, Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service, a nice local rural fire service. who got in touch with us, and they were the first emergency service partner. So I just wanted to play this video for you so you can see how quickly they can get that location, how effective it can be in this process.
Fire service, what's the emergency?
Hi there. I'm out running and there's basically a wood on fire.
Do you use the app, what3words?
I do. Don't know, ironically. Hold on.
What's your nearest town?
Blenheim in Bedfordshire.
Blenheim, okay.
Yeah. I'm literally in a field.
Are you by the river?
Close to the river. I've been running along the river, but I saw the flames and the smoke, so I just come to investigate. It's basically a big tree that's on fire. Right, so my located 3 words are loving, paddlers and bookshelf.
Okay, let's have a look.
Slightly, which direction? Which side to the north and whatnot of that?
So loving, paddlers and bookshelf.
Yeah.
Okay, right, so I've got you now. So I think the nearest main road to you is probably the Tempsford Road that goes over the little humpback bridge with the lights.
Exactly, yeah. I'm parked just along from that, actually.
Okay, all right. I'm going to get them to come out to there, and then they should be able to see it.
Yeah, they'll see the smoke.
Okay, that's brilliant, and thank you. And thank you for using the app. That's really helpful. Thanks. Bye.
So hopefully that helps demonstrate how it kind of can be used in the emergency response process. This is helped along by the work we do with those partners to communicate about the benefits of what3words to their local communities. So whether that's through social media, comms, the usual channels that that organization might be using to communicate important information, what3words very easily feeds into that process to encourage people to be prepared in case of an emergency by downloading the app so that they can give their 3-word address for where they're located. As I said before, the main benefit of the app and that being downloaded preemptively is that it works totally offline. So it doesn't matter where you are when the emergency happens. If you have the app downloaded, you can always find the 3 words for that location. So you can see lots of types of comms, the examples here from some of our Canadian partners as well, Toronto Police, the OPP and others, encouraging their members of the public to be prepared and download the app. Alongside that, I wanted to talk about a solution that we put in place to also help first responders and partners who want to use what3words proactively. When someone gets in touch and they don't have the what3words app downloaded, and obviously you don't want to ask someone to download an app in an emergency situation. That wouldn't be reasonable or clever, but we put this process in place so that emergency services can actually send a text message if someone is struggling to provide a location on the 911 call with a link. All they need to do in this situation is click on the link that they're sent, and it will open what is a very data light version of our online map site. So it's about 7 kilobytes to load, so you need very little data to open it. And then all you need to do is read the 3 words back over the phone, and you can be located down to within 10 feet. So that's dependent on the GPS of your phone, obviously. But if you're struggling to get an otherwise accurate location from a caller, this can be a really good way to cut down call times and get a location quickly. In terms of the emergency response process, our API, as I said before, is built into lots of different systems. So this is one example in the US Rapid SOS. You can see highlighted in the middle there, the integration to display that exact location for where someone is calling from, so that can be shared on for dispatch much more easily. This is another example from LA City Fire Department, who have integrated us as well. So this is built into a couple of their different systems as well. You can see the screen on the right-hand side, providing the what3words in the dispatch process towards the bottom of the screen there as well, alongside all the other information that you would normally provide. More examples. This is one from Baldwin County, sorry. You can see they've added the what3words locator so that they can search and display what3words addresses in their GIS as well. And you can see some of the examples of how that's being used by partners like Baldwin County to respond to incidents, and then to share those success stories as well, to encourage more and more people to be prepared, so they can share those stories more widely. As I said before, one interesting use case that's come up in the last couple of years is around emergency management, but more specifically COVID response. So we worked a lot very closely with our emergency service partners to help them make the most of what3words when obviously resource was very tight in lockdowns at the height and the peak of the spread in various markets that we operate in, to help them do things like map out hospital campuses so that they knew exactly where safe entrances and contaminated entrances were for ambulances and for deliveries to come to ensure the safety of everyone working there. So that was an interesting use case that's come out, and more broadly that's fed into the work that we do with logistics companies who are now more concerned with being specific about contact-free deliveries. So you can actually have your parcel delivered to a safe place deposit box or to your front door or your back door. So you can be much more specific by using what3words alongside your street address as well. It's very similar to how emergency services make the most of what3words. We do a lot of work with municipalities, government, utilities to help them improve the process of receiving reports from customers for damaged infrastructure, for illegal dumping on the side of the road, for potholes, street cabinets that are damaged, for pylons that have fallen over in a storm, leaks from water companies, all of these types of incidents that tend to happen in places that are difficult to describe easily. So what3words gives people a really easy way of providing that location, whether that be through social media, through customer contacts, call center teams, through digital, online forms on websites. what3words is just another way of collecting those locations. And we do a lot of work with partners around this particular use case. So working with large utilities around the world to help them communicate to customers to say, hey, we're now using what3words to help us locate damage. Next time you get in touch with us, please use what3words because it helps us find the issue much more safely, much more quickly, and ultimately respond to your request more efficiently. And we've done lots of efficiency tests and case studies with partners around the savings, the cost savings that you can see as a result of implementing what3words, and the SMS link specifically that I mentioned before. So for some of the utilities we work with, for example, this was UK Power Networks, who are the biggest electricity distributor in the country, managing the electricity distribution around the UK. They saw their call times reduced from an average of over 12 minutes to under 4. So obviously pretty significant reduction of 66%, which ultimately frees up agents' time to deal with other inquiries. In terms of other types of integration, wanted to call out a few nice examples. So this was one of the divisions of the US Forest Service who have integrated what3words into their ArcGIS as well. So they can save what3words locations on mobile. They can then share those between teams when they're out in the field more easily, tagging, specifically in this example, tagging tree locations for sample collection and reporting, mapping disease. I know in Manitoba as well, there's also mapping of Dutch elm disease going on using what3words, which is another nice example of how it can be used. And just to show you a couple of examples, obviously, of some GIS integrations themselves, appreciate it's taken me a while to get to this. You can see what it looks like here. So this is one of our partners, again, UK Power Networks, who have integrated one of our plugins into their GIS system so that they can assign a what3words address to every piece of critical infrastructure, in this case, all of their electricity poles. And they can also search for a what3words address. So if that location is provided by an engineer or a customer, they can search it in the map and then relay the location of the nearest piece of infrastructure to engineers to resolve the issue. Another nice example is actually Network Rail, who manage all of the railway infrastructure over here in the UK. They've integrated our API into most of their GIS systems now for all types of assets. So everything from line side buildings to level crossings, access roads, gates, telecoms assets, all types of assets, to be honest, in all of their various GIS systems internally. As you can see on the left-hand side in blue there, every single line-side building has the what3words address assigned to it, alongside the lat long and the grid reference and all the other information that they would traditionally have. And lastly, just another nice example of one of our case studies that we did with partners. So this was around the productivity gains for field service firms, so facilities management, for getting out to customers more efficiently. And they estimated, after they integrated what3words, this partner of ours called Big Change, that they could save individual field-based employees up to 30 minutes per day in time spent locating jobs. So again, massive savings operationally for them and their customers. And as you would have seen from the last few slides, some of those examples are UK based. The reason for that being that we are probably further along the journey in the UK than we are in the US. We're still relatively early in the work that we're doing with partners across the US. As I said before, it's a key market, as you would expect for a company like us. But in the UK, we are now an established standard with infrastructure partners across construction, utilities, local government, and national government as well. So you can see a few examples of some of the spectrum of partners that we work with in the world of infrastructure there. And I wanted to just finish off very quickly by playing one more video. This is just a nice overview case study video that we put together with some of our infrastructure and utility partners in the UK, which really illustrates some of those use cases that I've been talking through in the presentation. So just wanted to end on this.
UK Power Networks are the country's biggest electricity distributor, making sure power flows for more than 8 million homes and businesses across London, the South East and the East of England.
Thames Water deliver 2.7 billion litres of water to 10 million customers, and we take 15 million customers' sewage away.
Open reaches coverage is UK-wide. At the moment, we have over 26,000 engineers who work in the field to have customers connected every day.
We were the first distribution network operator to integrate what3words into our reporting software.
Before, we had to really use long descriptions, but now with what3words, we can get people to the right place at the right time. It was divided the whole world up into 3 metre squares, about the size of a parking spot. Each square has been given a unique combination of 3 random words, and that's all you need to find any piece of infrastructure.
Our customer service agent has what3words available to them. That enables them to very quickly and very accurately pinpoint the location back into the public.
For health and safety, we can use it to get emergency services to us. 85% of the emergency services also are using what3words.
We deal with online chat and Twitter and Facebook, so we could have BT, could have Sky, could have Vodafone, could have TalkTalk, where their customers went to them to report damage to the network. And if they can't provide an exact address location, it could be in the middle of nowhere, we would ask them to go on the what3words app. One of the main benefits is for the engineer's time.
If I send you a link to your mobile, would you be able to click on that link and give me the what3words?
Press the link. The Find Me link displays my what3words.
Okay, I can see that you're on a Newmarket Road, just off the A14.
Sometimes you do get the obscure locations, whether it's a farm and it's a named house and not a number. what3words does work a lot better than a postcode. For the engineer, just to have 3 words and it navigates exactly where they need to go. Numbers are half with the response time. Pace, dizzy, half.
We have the largest sewer treatment works in the whole of Europe. Some of our bigger sites, they can have 4 or 5 entrances. So now we can direct deliveries to the right entrance.
It's an easy tool to use. It's so simple. If you know there's a pole that's hidden somewhere or a property that is hard to find, copy and share that into the job notes for the next engineer.
This is a universal way of talking about addressing.
I wouldn't use anything else. I think it's the best thing.
Open the app, press a button, and there you go.
Brilliant. So I hope that played okay on your end. And The subtitles worked as well. I think you got a nice selection of the regional accents across the UK there as well. So hopefully it was understandable by everyone on your side. So really wanted to wrap up there. Hopefully that's been a useful introduction to what3words, some of the key use cases. But yeah, would love to pause and answer any questions that you guys have.
Thanks, James. Yeah, fantastic. The video came through really well, and it's very understandable. So, well, we've got 9 minutes left here, and we've got a number of questions. My colleague Matt Drewyard is going to help out, and we're going to read them off in case anybody's driving along the way and wants to hear the question as well. So, Matt, you want to run through some of these?
Sure. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, James, as well. That was a very informative talk there. So thanks for joining us. So Tom K asks, are the words ever reused in the same or a different position within the 3-word combination?
Very good question. So the answer is every square in the world is totally unique. So there are no 2 squares in the world that have the same 3-word address. You can have the same 3 words in a different order. So you might have table, chair, lamp and table, lamp, chair. But as I said before, those will intentionally be shuffled very far apart so that you can spot that mistake easily if you were to get them the wrong way around, and you can correct that mistake.
Great, thank you. So Tim Nolan asks, how does what3words handle vertical high-rise buildings?
Again, yeah, that's a common question we get. So the short answer is we are based on GPS coordinates. So as I said, we're fundamentally all our tech is doing is taking a lat long, converting it to what3words address and vice versa. So we are used in exactly the same way as a GPS coordinate in that sense. It's a 2-dimensional grid. Generally speaking, how we recommend partners use it. So for example, this is probably most applicable for the work we do in logistics and delivery space. So what we would recommend is people would give the what3words to the most relevant entrance to the building. So the front door, the delivery gate, wherever that might be. And then you can have any other information that you would normally have. So if it's floor 5, flat 15, studio 7, whatever that might be.
Nice.
Great. So Ray asks, and I believe you touched on this, but we'll go ahead and get some more definition there. So Ray asks, can the what3words grid be loaded into QGIS or ArcPro?
Yes and yes. So we have the locator works in ArcGIS Pro and QGIS as well. We have a plugin for QGIS. So I'm wondering what the best method of follow-up could be, but I have my email on the screen. So if anyone has questions for a specific project or integration that they're interested in, please feel free to make a note of my email and reach out directly. But if you were to Google what3words GIS plugins, you'll hopefully find our developer tutorials, which walk you through the integration process for QGIS and ArcGIS.
Okay, thank you. So Amy Clear asks, this is a tricky one here. Are homophones considered in the naming convention?
Yeah, really good question. So we actually have a dedicated languages team here who I personally think you have one of the most interesting jobs. So for every language that we develop, we work with 50 to 100 language consultants around the world on that language. And we basically go through a process of taking the dictionary and then refining that down to a list of 40,000 words. So it's 40,000 cubed, gives you enough combinations of words for the 57 trillion squares that there are to cover the world, in case you were wondering how many there are. And we go through a process of removing homophones. We remove any rude words, obviously, any culturally insensitive words. So, in languages like Arabic, we remove references to alcohol and similar things like that. So yes, the answer to the homophones question is we do remove homophones, yeah.
Super. So David L asks, does the Find Me link require the end user to have what3words app installed in order to function?
No, it doesn't. So that's the solution that we've designed specifically for a situation where someone doesn't have the app downloaded. So in order to use the Find Me link, all you need to do is obviously have the ability to send out an SMS to the caller, send that text message. All they need to do is click on a link and it opens in their browser that really data light page, which they can read the 3 words from. So there's no download required.
Okay, so this is a bit more technical. From Tom K, do we need a specialized or developer account to use or embed the features into our GIS applications?
So yes, it's not anything special, but you will need to sign up for a what3words developer account. It takes 2 seconds, and then you create an API key, and we have within our developer site, we have all the tutorials you could ever need to integrate into any software really. So yes, it's a very quick sign up process. If you were to Google what3words developer sign up, you can find that, and you can create an account totally for free, have a play around in the sandbox environment to test out the functionality, and also sign up for our starter plan, which allows you to start using what3words at low volume, totally free of charge. So please do have a play around, sign up for the API, and as I say, reach out if you've got specific questions, and be more than happy to help.
Okay, super. So as a follow-up to that, and I think you sort of touched on it a little bit in your comment, but Tom also asks, is there or will there be a per use cost?
Yes, essentially. So the way our pricing works is there's a free tier of usage of up to 1,000 convert to coordinate calls or searches of a 3-word address per month. So you can integrate for free, you can use it at low volume for free. If nobody wants, if nobody uses what3words initially, then there's no charge. And then we base our pricing on volume of usage. So higher the volume, the more discounted the price, but it's a per transaction fee for converting a what3words address into a coordinate, so geocoding that location essentially.
Okay, great. Well, we have about 2 minutes left. If anybody has any last minute questions, you want to drop it in there really quickly. If not, I believe we may go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah. If you all do think of something you want to ask James afterwards, you can email us. I think we put the email link in here a while ago. Let's see here, the info@ursatexas.org. James, if you don't mind, flip to the last slide if there is one. Just
Yes.
we'll showcase our sponsors. Like to thank them for helping us put this on as we do every single month. James, once again, thank you. If anybody is interested in volunteering, please, reach out to us. We're open. You don't have to be in Texas. We welcome everybody. But if you want to reach out and get involved, it's a great way to network. So I think I saw at the height 80 participants today, James. So hopefully that's a pretty good number for you. We think so.
Yeah,
and once again, we'll be back here next month. James, you're always welcome to come in and jump in and listen to our presentations. And like to thank all my colleagues and co-hosts for helping out. University of Texas is a big volunteer, so everybody donates their time to put these great presentations on. There's a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So if you want to get involved, by all means, go ahead and use that QR code you see down here in the bottom left and bottom right hand corners. Well, I guess it's the bottom right. So it's if you want to do the attendance in the map, it's the one on the lower left hand corner. Matt, Ollie, anybody have anything else before we go ahead and wrap up? It's 1 o'clock.
No, that was a great presentation. Really enjoyed that, and downloaded the app in the middle of the presentation. So
yeah,
I'm good to go now.
Fantastic. So James, if you're ever in Texas, make sure you give us a shout. So
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Hey, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, and you all have a great rest of your day. And again, thanks for attending. We appreciate it. See you next month. We can go ahead and stop the recording.